Welcome back. Joining us from Washington with a look at Axios AM, the co-founder of Axios, Mike Allen. Mike, good morning to you.
Hey, Mike. Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Talk to us about Axios' one big thing today.
Yeah, the Axios one big thing is the Democrats' three villains. So as Democrats look ahead to their 2020 strategy, you've got three branches of government and three white guys who are going to be their targets. President Trump, of course, you've already seen Democratic candidates, especially Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, going after President Trump instead of going against their Democratic rivals. Second, and this is new, we're seeing very much Speaker Pelosi going to target Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. So across the chamber, going after him. Axios reports that she has decided that because her caucus is a little divided about how to go after Trump, maybe there's Trump fatigue, maybe those attacks have a little bit of diminishing returns. She's going to go after McConnell as the face of obstruction and as Trump's enabler. And then the third villain we saw emerge over the weekend. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh, new reporting by the New York Times about the investigation before his confirmation. The Axios tally now 6 of the 2020 Democrats calling for his impeachment.
So speaking of those three quote unquote villains, as you guys are describing them, which ones are the Democrats likely to make inroads on when it comes to political fighting?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I think that we're probably going to hear the most. And the newest target is Mitch McConnell. And here's the thinking of the Democrats, that even a moderate Democrat who may be in a Trump district or maybe in a Trump-friendly district can go after Mitch McConnell safely. And it's part of Leader Pelosi's theory that they didn't win back the House. She didn't become Speaker Pelosi in 2018 by going after Trump. Of course, they did it on issues. They did it on health care. And there's a theory among Democrats that there's only so much you can move his approval rating. It's not good, but as we've seen here on the show, it's very steady.
All right, let's switch gears here. I want to talk about the rally set for tonight for the president in Albuquerque, New Mexico. It seems like a little bit of an odd location, considering that the state has voted Democrat in 6 of the last 7 general elections. But Axios does have some exclusive insight into the whys here.
Yeah, where in the world is the president? As you know, presidential travel is very carefully calibrated. And you're right. You look at New Mexico on paper, you look at it as a state that Hillary Clinton won by 8 points. And of course, there was a libertarian in the race, Gary Johnson, that made a difference there, but not promising Trump country. But here's what Axios learned. The Trump campaign got onto New Mexico as a target when they saw in their data that at a rally in El Paso, they had tons of people crossing over from New Mexico. And they said, oh, here is an opportunity. Now, demographers tell us that they're still unlikely to switch and flip that state, get those electoral votes, because half of the residents are Latino, Hispanic. But it's a place that President Trump is going to try to open up a little new territory.
It's interesting to see Democrats get bullish on Texas and Republicans get bullish on New Mexico, given these demographic shifts, as Mike pointed out. Mike, let me get your thoughts on one other thing. I know Axios has a sneak peek at what is being billed as a modern successor to the famous Live Aid concert. Give us the details about that.
Yeah, so remember, will they even know it's Christmas? The 1985 Live Aid concert for global hunger. And now there's going to be a reprise of that for the digital age. So coming in September 2020 on 5 continents across 10 hours, there's going to be a concert, Global Goal Live. And it's brought by Global Citizen, and Teneo, the CEO advisory firm, is doing the business part of it. The goal is over this year to raise billions from philanthropy, from business, direct from government to try to combat hunger, climate change, and poverty.
It'll be exciting to see what kind of acts they get for that, especially when you've got so many of these Global Citizen concerts popping up around the world with some of these big name headliners.
What else are you watching this week, Mike?
Yeah, and so this week we're going to watch whether the president doubles down, goes even further with his threat against Iran. When the president said locked and loaded, and of course he's used that phrase in the past, just a day after Secretary of State Pompeo said that Iran was responsible for that attack in Saudi Arabia. That was an implicit threat by the president. And one other key point on that, the fact that drones were used here is really freaking out people in government and business. It's a new vulnerability, and we've never seen it do this kind of damage.
Yeah, we'll see if the Secretary of State and the President can get on the same page in terms of who is behind this. Mike Allen,
and what to do about it.
Yeah, exactly. Mike Allen,
Thank you
always
for
a
your
pleasure.
coverage.
Thank you very much. We're going to be reading XACM in just a bit. To all of our viewers out there, don't forget, you too can sign up for that newsletter by simply going to signup.axios.com.
That does it for us on this Monday morning. I'm Yasmin Vasugian alongside Ayman Mohadeen. Morning Joe starts right now.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.